Okay, take two, everyone.
Yeah, so the studio space is kind of fucked. But at the same time, it's the best it's ever been, which is crazy because now it looks nice, but the name of the show is now Get Me Out.
Yeah, so I guess we should start off there with the soft rebrand of the show. We have fucking 30 subscribers on YouTube, so it's not like it actually matters. But essentially, we were competing with the band that made the song We Like to Move It.
I think it was the artist.
The
I
artist?
think it's just like the guy who sang it.
It was just a guy?
Yeah.
Okay. So we had already pre-recorded like 4 episodes before we decided to do the soft rebrand because we tried to search ourselves up on YouTube and it just wasn't possible.
Yeah. You would think that we found that out sooner, or that like one of our 30 subscribers who we know personally, because that's all of them, would have also pointed that out to us.
We're 2 of the subscribers.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would think that someone would point it out to us, when we weren't 7 months into a project.
Right.
But at this point in time, whatever. It's no harm done. Like, we had a couple of episodes that reached triple-digit views on the YouTube account, but it's fine.
Now it'll be more like discoverable, kind of, sort of.
Yeah. So I guess the general idea behind Get Me Out is that was a phrase that was uttered quite a bit when we were gaming a lot throughout the pandemic and even pre-pandemic.
And into our first podcast, and I'm sure you've heard several times in this podcast.
Yeah, and it's always me.
Yeah.
It's always me just going,
Yeah.
please just get me out of this episode.
Sometimes Nikhil.
Yeah. And I'm sure that if you have been listening, we've been a little bit braver about sharing our own, at least for me, I've been quite a bit braver about sharing my political views. And I know we joke about me being a both-siders on this podcast, but like the reality is I make it pretty obvious where I stand.
Right.
Shout out to Joe Brandon,
Yep, the most pro-union president we have ever had in modern times.
Yeah.
Speaking of which,
that does lead us into why this episode is going to be a little bit different than the other ones. There is no movie to be reviewed.
Yep.
So SAG-AFTRA and WGA released guidelines regarding what is okay and what is not okay for social media influencers to do in regards to content that is made by struck companies.
And we're not, as you say, influencers, but
we
are
okay,
working on projects.
Hold on.
Well, you are outside of this.
I have 1,500 followers on Instagram.
Yeah.
And that basically means that I am entitled to like free hotel rooms, free cruises.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
I'm my own brand.
Yeah. Yep.
So I feel as though I have a response. This sucks. I hate this bit.
And that's why I encourage you. I want to see how long and how hard you can commit to that bit.
I hate this bit. But essentially, there is a certain amount of solidarity that we have to have as also people in the working class to stand with the union. And while we're not directly promoting a movie by we're not gaining anything from reviewing movies and telling viewers and people of the sort to go and watch those movies, it kind of goes against a lot of what we believe in when it comes to labor rights and the current labor power that exists in this country.
And even if we're not directly trying to say like, oh, you should go and watch this movie, if we like it, you're more inclined to watch it. If it's funny bad enough, people who haven't seen it will want to watch it. And we just don't want to like secondhand support the people who can't support their artists.
The absolute fucking demons that run these corporations.
Right.
And with the mergers of multiple production companies into the AMPTP and all of those and all of that's going on, it's really hard for you to pick a movie that is not owned, like the IP is not owned by a struck company.
Right.
Like at the end of the day, it's almost impossible to do that at this current point in time. And so, considering the fact that I have talked at length in private between the two of us about how much that like we need to gain more labor power in this country, and went on my Red Scare,
Yep.
like going all on my Red Scare rants.
Right.
I know that's not the correct phrase. Fucking kill me, fuck all of you.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it would be extremely hypocritical of me to continue to try to release content promoting
The products of these corporations.
Yeah. It would kind of go against everything that we both kind of believe in at this point.
Yeah. And that's, I also especially feel that obligation to like stand with them because I am in a union, and unions are nothing without the solidarity between each and every one of them. Teamsters, decorators, carpenters, teachers. If we don't all show up to each other's rallies, if we don't all support each other's strikes for, a more livable wage, or just for something like SAG-AFTRA and the Writers Guild, fair pay where the inconsistency in the nature of the work still, like, we're still allowed to make a living. We don't need to like do this and hope to God that like our day job is cool with us taking a few weeks off to, do those odd job projects whenever we do manage to like get hired to write again. I'm not, it's the royal we. I'm not trying to like get hired to write any of these movies or anything, but like that's that whole side of the conversation. It's everyone, like, the nature of the work is so inconsistent that whatever you get paid per project needs to like be able to sustain you for like an extended period of time until you get the next project. And with actors having to audition for every single one, and then at in the contracts that they rejected and are striking against now, they're paying to audition for these projects when they're not guaranteed a part in whatever that project is. Their audition scripts are like 12 pages long, and everyone says that you don't need it memorized, but it's one of those, like, it's like the Writers Guild where, oh, you're only supposed to work this much. If you're not the union president, you're going to be blacklisted if you don't do some work for free.
Yeah,
and that's
if
still
you're not
in the union.
Overwork yourself.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
And that's what the flip side of the coin is for the actors. Like, you don't need to have it's not in writing that you need to have the auditions memorized, but that's what literally everyone else auditioning for the same role is doing to try and make themselves stand out. So,
and it was a point that Matt Damon brought up in one of the interviews during one of the premieres for Oppenheimer. And so I didn't know this until that point, but actors need to make $26,000 a year from acting through SAG projects in order for them to qualify for healthcare.
Right.
That opens up room for us to have a much deeper conversation about the current state of healthcare in this country, but that is for another episode. But without the companies, without the corporations giving royalties on projects, a lot of extras, not the stars, will not be able to meet that quota of $26,000. And when you are trying to be a working actor, getting a normal office job is hard,
right?
Because you always have to make time to go to auditions and all of these things, and so most of the time these people are working service industries jobs, food service, sales, all of these things, and if you're working part time, which most of the time when you're working in food service, that is what you're doing, you're not insured from your employer.
Absolutely not. And you're not even like paid by your employer. It's all tips, which is also a whole other conversation. But
and as someone that is self-employed, I personally know how expensive getting your own healthcare without the backing of a company is. It is unaffordable for the shittiest coverage that you can ever imagine. in this country. So to expect someone to be able to do that on a service industry job while you are also requiring them to live in one of the most expensive cities in the world, because let's be real here. If you live in, like, I don't know, like somewhere in Indiana where it's affordable to live, or somewhere in Wisconsin, the auditions aren't going to come to you. You can send in audition tapes, but most of the time they're going to require you to be in studio to do line reads in person.
Right. And they're like, in those two specifically, it's like if you're lucky, the audition's in Chicago, because like we don't have a huge industry for actors. It's there. Like, we have all the Chicago shows. We've got
we have
like
stage
Shameless
shows
and some other stuff.
It's like we have stage shows, and we do have a small studio scene here where you can get work doing like studio shows and all of that stuff. But
yeah, and then for voice actors, it's like you can do some like local or like regional ads. Like at
you can hop in there and do
and
like
stuff.
a Menards thing.
Yeah,
you know,
something like. I mean, that's probably
money.
all one guy, but
just save big money. You know.
Yeah, and that's the other thing when it comes to the actors. It's not like the reason they're striking isn't so Matt Damon and like Christian Bale can make more money. It's so that like all the Jakes from State Farm and like Flows, and like those are like two exceptions for ads because they're so like well known.
Like I think one way that the media has been specifically like
disingenuous.
Well, just the way that mainstream outlets have been kind of covering this news is constantly talking about how, oh, look at these writers, look at these actors, how selfish they are for going on strike. Why aren't they thinking about like the janitors? Why aren't they thinking about the other people that are working in the office to clean up after them in the sets and stuff? And it's like,
you know, they're all still a part of like the Federation of Labor.
Like you're thinking about this from like the most fucking 15-year-old brain, like internet brain rot perspective that you possibly can. When the reality is the people that you should be upset with are the CEOs and the board of directors that are getting paid millions, hundreds of millions of dollars every single year off of the backs of, you know, the people that create the value in their
companies
for their companies.
Yeah, right.
And you know, the first people that are being let go are those people that are working in sanitation for these companies. And it's like, no, it's not the writers' faults for all of this.
Right.
Big Bobby Boy can live without getting a $15 million year-end bonus. And that literally you can give like 10% of that to... you can literally give 10% of that and pay basically like your entire janitorial staff.
Yeah.
Because we're not fucking paying them a living wage.
No, we are not.
So, I mean, I'm making a bit of a generalization here, but a lot of the workers that are doing that out in California, they do tend to be undocumented workers.
Right.
You don't have to pay them the federal minimum wage.
Right.
Like, let's not fucking act as though all of these people are getting paid, you know, that whatever it is, minimum wage in California. I think it's like $18 or whatever.
I was going to say, I didn't know if that was the minimum wage, but it's like, oh, 18's like decent. It's like, listen, it's not decent in the LA housing market.
If you live in LA and you make $100,000 a year, you qualify for food stamps.
That's so fucked.
That is the reality of the housing market that exists on the West Coast. And it's
not much better in like New York specifically.
Yeah, and like,
which is the other place where that's where like all the big stage acting shows and everything, Broadway and all that shit is at.
But I think we're kind of losing focus talking about the housing situation here, when the reality is, I think a lot of the time when labor power is being brought up, I feel as though people younger than us and most people our age can get behind it, but I still feel as though there are a lot of people that are misinformed about why unions exist. The reality is this: you don't have to like the person that you are in a union with. You do
Yeah.
not have to agree with their political beliefs.
Right.
You do not have to agree with any of their social perspectives on anything, because a union is not there to force political change. What a union exists for is fairness. You are supposed to be extracting as much wealth from the value that you produce for a company. That is what a union is there for.
I feel like it's inherently political, though, at the same time, in order
Well,
to guarantee
I
those.
think unions are inherently political, but
Yeah.
but the what I'm trying to get at is you can be in a union with someone that is like the polar opposite of where you align politically.
Yeah.
But what the union is there to do is to make sure that the both of you are paid fair wages.
Right.
They're there to make sure that you are able to take care of yourself, to take care of your family, as well as making sure that the corporations are held accountable for anything that happens to you while you are on the job.
Yep.
And I think that that's a huge point that, kind of gets lost in the ether whenever any of this is talked about.
Definitely.
And kind of going back to the whole SAG thing that we were touching on, a lot of mainstream media sources are constantly talking about, look at all of these wealthy individuals. Like, look at how selfish and self-centered they are. They're so greedy. They want more. And it's like, no, man. Like, they're not fighting for Matt Damon, Ron Perlman, or like Margot Robbie.
Right.
What they're fighting for is like, like brunette girl number 6 at the fucking at like the fucking diner in
Waitress
Pulp Fiction.
2. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like those are the people that need to be protected, because what the corporation
Xbox guy in Transformers.
Yeah. Like what the corporations are doing, especially with the rise of AI in filmmaking, like the idea that you can hire one actor for one day and then they own your likeness in perpetuity.
It's half a day. You get half a day's pay for them to like take your pictures or scan your face or whatever, and then they're able to use your image and likeness forever. For any project, like you're like, black-haired guy number 3 in everything from fucking, the next great Michael Bay movie, all
Or
the way
like
up to-
Marvel.
Yeah.
And then the other thing too is there is also a reason why movies have gotten so much worse with the like the developments in technology, because back in the day, all effects were basically practicals, like explosions and shit.
And people had to get creative.
Well, the thing is, in order for you to do practical work, you have to hire union workers. There are rights that protect them, that make sure that you have to pay them for the work that they're doing. And VFX, mostly you can ship it off overseas. You can ship it off overseas. You don't have to use union workers. So like, that super dope fight scene that you get to watch in, the next amazing Doctor Strange movie starring Benedict Cumberbatch and fucking Chris Pratt or whoever else it is. That's probably shipped off to some like production house in Korea to do all of the work, and then that gets sent back. And they're probably paying a fraction of the cost that it would take in order for you to do like a practical effect of an explosion.
Yeah. And that's done with just like our animated series, like in the States too. Like I remember in shows even like Steven Universe, they do like the keyframes and stuff here, but like all the in-betweens would be sent out to Korea. And it's all cost-cutting nonsense that all these companies, and then I don't know if you want to get into like the Hollywood tax that you were telling me about earlier.
Yeah, in a little bit. I still want to rant about the fucking corporations for a little bit longer.
It's still on that topic.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, like the biggest thing that just drives me up a fucking wall about the discourse behind this strike that's going on right now is you have a certain sect of people that are basically saying, like, why should these writers get paid more when they haven't written anything good in years?
Yeah.
And like that happened in our group chat alone.
Right.
And that's a fucking brain dead take.
Right.
Because they're not the ones that are in control of the script.
Right.
At the end of the day,
They can sell it, and then once it's sold and in the hands of these corporations,
it's not even that. It's once you are in the writing room, you have zero control over what ends up getting chopped.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and that's all up to these producers.
Yeah. It's all up to the executives. It's all up to the CEOs to look at the final, or not the CEOs, but the higher ups, the fucking like suits that don't know what even is final draft as a program. Like
Right.
they're the assholes that get to make the final decision on what gets to be shown on the screen because they feel as though that is going to generate them the most profit.
And that's what's driving every one of their quote unquote creative decisions when it comes to all of these different films and movies and everything in between.
Yeah.
Like that, it's always their say. As long as they think it's the right call, that's what they're going to ask the writers and directors to do.
And I think that it's so short-sighted and really stupid of you to anyone that's listening that has that take. It's like in your day job, do you have the final say in what your job responsibilities are?
Right.
Like, actually, I want you to think about this. Do you actually have any agency over what your assigned tasks are every single day? Mm-hmm. Because if you do, then you're probably your own boss, and this conversation is probably going to fall on deaf ears. But
in all likeliness.
if you're working in for any company in any capacity, you are given a set list of tasks every single day that you are expected to finish, and you are supposed to meet those quotas because of some arbitrary metric that's set by the board of directors or whoever is in control,
and
right?
the data analysts and anyone who's in charge of HR.
And if you deviate from that at all, you lose your job. You're going to be reprimanded at the very least once, and after that, you are going to lose your job. That is what happens in almost every single make work job in this country.
Yeah. And the more things get cut away from these career paths, the more that these what are right now careers get whittled away to become more like gig work. The less everyone's making, the less these careers are sustainable, the less people can get into it, the less people will. And it's just...
You're stuck in a cycle.
Yeah.
You're absolutely stuck in a cycle. And I mean, I can definitely empathize with writers, even though I'm not a part of the union or anything, but the work that I get is gig work.
Right.
I do contract work most of the year, and I can get more money up front doing this. But that comes at the cost of not being able to get great healthcare coverage. Even if you're working for a corporation, you're probably not getting great healthcare coverage. But that is getting the money up front makes me feel more comfortable. But there are a lot of things that I am giving up in order to do that. I don't have a 401k. I don't have a retirement fund.
There's no pension.
There's no pension. Yeah, there is no safety net for me.
Right.
I am one medical emergency away from literally being desolate.
Right.
And I understand that, and I understood that when I got into this line of work. And, I hope at some point in the future, other videographers out there, and we can try to do something of the sort of unionizing so that we can ensure that we are safe. Because the one thing that I always feel the need to stress when we are talking about labor in this country, a lot of people feel as though the only kind of real labor is blue collar labor, construction work, anything with heavy lifting. But it's I didn't fucking spend thousands of hours learning how to do everything that I do just for it to be diminished by the fact that you in suburban Delaware thinks that you can do your job better than me. It's not easy.
Well, thinks they can do your job
better
than
that
you.
they can do my job better than me. It's not easy.
Yeah.
It's and fucking stressful.
Yeah, and if you let any of that get to you and you show any signs of it, then there's your contract. But,
that there goes your contract and all of that shit, right? But artists are some of the least respected. I should say, like, the behind the scenes artists are some of the least respected. Are some of the least respected people in entertainment or just in the workforce in general.
Yeah.
Nobody ever understands what it takes to put together a feature film or a YouTube video that you're watching or anything like that. No one understands the amount of work that goes into doing any of that and how much skill it actually takes and how hard it is to do that.
And like all the like specific and like boundaries and whatever that you need to keep things in between for like audio. It's like there can be no peaks over this. The overall like integrated loudness needs to be here and no louder, and we want it as loud as it can without being too loud. So like, especially for ads and everything, that's why sometimes you'll just be listening to the radio and like one ad just like fucking exploding and the next one's regular.
Yeah. Like it goes without saying that labor power inside of the United States of America is at an all-time low. And the corporations, the capital holders, are starting to get a little bit too comfortable with how much power that they can hold over the labor force, and it goes, and it definitely showed in that interview with Bob Iger.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw that.
I have not.
So, I believe it was with CNBC and
Bob Iger, the CEO of
Disney. Who got paid $25 million? Whose salary is like $25 million a year or something like that.
Before his bonuses.
Yeah, I believe it was CNBC or MSNBC, one of those two. They posted, or like they had a screenshot of the total income of the last 5 years of all the major media like CEOs.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those numbers are absolutely outrageous. It is absolutely disgusting.
I'm sure every one of them is.
Yeah, it is nine digits. Easy. All of them. Every single one of them within the past 5 years. And they have the gall. They have the absolute gall to say that what the writers and the screen actors that what they're demanding is outrageous and unreasonable.
Yeah.
What fucking value are you as the CEO of a company contributing to the actual company? What are you making? What do you play aside from like moving numbers around to make it seem as though you're losing money every single year? And then we can kind of get into Hollywood accounting, which in reality is just accounting. And like, this is, I'm not going to cast stones in a glass house. Like, at the end of the year, when I have to do taxes, there are always things that I write off on taxes,
Right.
And my accountant is always going to do his best to make sure that I'm not overpaying on taxes, and tries to make sure that I pay like the lowest amount that I can feasibly afford.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I appreciate that. It does make me a little bit of a hypocrite when I'm talking about this shit, but I also do not make the money that these people make. I don't even come close to sniffing the type of money that they're making every single year.
Yeah.
But like, the thing that sucks is that I am paying more in taxes than most of these corporations are.
Which is so fucking baffling.
But yeah, so the thing with Hollywood accounting is essentially what they tend to do is that every single year they will find ways to make it seem as though they are they're losing money, like based off of theoretical losses of like box office sales, DVD sales, advertisement views on streaming platforms and things of that sort. And they do it in like the most insane ways possible, where it's like, oh man, the Titanic movie generated like negative $23 million in box office sales in 2023.
Amazing.
And I'm being a bit hyperbolic with that statement. It's not anything that egregious, but you get what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. That is their modus operandi when it comes to this. That's how Netflix every single year says, oh, we're losing money. There's no way that we can be profitable. It's like, Netflix? You're fucking telling me Netflix
for real
isn't profitable.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck you. Actually, fuck you.
Yeah.
There's no way in hell that you're not generating any, like, what, $7 billion a year at the very least based off of like global subscription fees.
Yeah.
You're fucking charging us $21 a month just so we can share an account.
Not anymore. Because a bunch more people signed up after they got on top of that password sharing shit. But yeah, no, it's completely ludicrous how, like, they think it's within their rights. It, like, they're making that kind of money where you're detached from, like, being able to recognize and relate to humanity.
Yeah, you've reached a point where you no longer understand what it means to be human.
Yeah.
Because, like, there is nothing that you have to worry about anymore.
Mm-hmm. It's
like,
just numbers and stockholders.
You've lost all ability to be empathetic to your, like, literal neighbor.
Yeah. Well, not their neighbors.
Sure.
All their neighbors are in the same fucking boat.
It's fucking insane. And, like, it's even more maddening when you see people defend these actions of these CEOs. It's like they're nothing short of demons. They are nothing short of demons.
It's because one day they're going to grow up to be just like them.
I don't remember who said the quote. It's like, class solidarity will never exist in North America because every single person that is poor believes that they are just a displaced, embarrassed millionaire.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't
really
remember.
sad.
I don't remember who said that. But that was that's something that always, goes on, that I constantly think about.
Yeah.
And it's one of the few things that drives me up a fucking wall.
Few things.
In recent years, I've calmed down quite a bit.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so fucking frustrating listening to young people, not just boomers that have already made it. They're situated. They own a home. They're comfortable. They sent their kids off to college and all of that.
Yep.
But, like, seeing young people defend the actions of these CEOs, I'm just like, you understand that you're the next up in the fucking meat grinder, don't you?
Yeah.
That's not you. Like, you will never be them because you weren't born wealthy enough to be able to form the connections necessary for you to get there.
Yeah.
And like, I constantly talk about this in our private conversations of, like, I understand that where I come from and, like, the job that I am able to have now comes from a place of extreme fucking privilege.
Mm-hmm.
Without the help of my family being, in the socioeconomic class that they were in and them supporting me through the career change, I would not have been able to do this.
Yeah.
I was able to go to college, get a degree, work in an industry, and find out that I was miserable, and also be able to fucking, like, change the career paths without
complete 180,
without having to worry about anything financially for at least 2 of those years. Like, there are so few people that are able to do that in this country just because of the way that this country is set up. We are not a country of, like, greener pastures and this American dream. No, we're a fucking punitive colony. Everything that is set up in this country when it comes to the idea of labor punishes you for being poor.
Yeah. Down to, like, not even being able to, like, drive out somewhere for an interview.
And on top of all of that, oh man, this is going so far off of the whole union talk that I kind of wanted to focus on, but we gatekeep education, the single largest factor in whether or not you can, like, move up the social ladder. Any form of social mobility starts with your ability to gain a higher education, and we gatekeep all of that. By arbitrary metrics. It's like, why the fuck do Ivy League schools need to exist, and why do they mean more than going to a state school? It's just like, sorry that I don't go to a school that 17 sister fuckers went to. Like, fuck all of that.
Well, it's because they're more prestigious the more people they turn away.
Yeah, I mean, accepted, right? This country and the way that the labor force has been since basically pretty much since the late 60s all the way up until now, the government has chipped away any amount of power that labor has had in this country to a point now where most people will never be able to achieve the American dream.
Yeah.
The American dream truly is a dream.
Right. No, I mean there've been people who've like going back. We've talked about this too, analyzing The Simpsons, which like when it came out in like the 80s was like this is what the American dream is. It's like the single family home. Dad goes to work, mom stays at home, raises the kids. Can have up to 3 kids, send them to school, like let them do whatever. It's like nowadays that's so far gone and so unrealistic for the vast majority of people to live like with that many kids in a single family home without being on government assistance in
And
a
they're
good neighborhood
constantly
in a
trying to
suburb.
And they're constantly fucking trying to take away what little government assistance still exists in this
Yeah.
country.
Yep. And it's
It's
absolutely
inhumane.
absurd.
It
Yeah.
is absolutely inhumane.
Yeah.
The things that our government has gotten away with and the things that these corporations have gotten away with.
Yeah. And it's almost like, going back to like the 60s and everything, I feel like as the kids who grew up there, and got into these blue collar jobs, it was like, oh, you know what? I might be doing pretty good for myself, but like
It's
my
backbreaking
kids,
work.
Yeah, I don't want my kids to have to do back-breaking work to make a living like this. I want to send them to college so they can make this much or more doing office work or something like that. And I think because of that sort of mentality and like they didn't really see what was going on or whatever, union power just started to fall off because less and less young people saw that as like a legitimate avenue to pursue. Everyone was just sort of conditioned into thinking, well, I need to go to college. That's kind of the only thing to do right after you graduate high school. At least in our like neighborhoods and like income brackets, I'm sure, in places where kids aren't graduating high school, they're the ones that are joining the trades because that's probably what most of their families did to get them where they're at.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't really know where else we can take this conversation. It's I think we've made it pretty clear that you should do what you can to support SAG and to support the WGA, be it through actual manpower, going out to the strikes, helping out however you can, donating what you can if that is something that you can do, because
to their relief funds, which supports all the people who are striking.
Because there was a really big mask off moment by one of these CEOs. That he has gone out and said, we are just going to wait it out until you start losing your homes.
To the writers. Right before the actors joined in.
And I think that the CEO thought that was going to be a good scare tactic, anonymously dropping that down and trying to scare the writers' union into going back to the negotiation table and accepting less than what they deserve. And what they failed to account for, which is the same thing that they always fail to account for, is the power of social media and the public reception of that. That voter base that you thought was going to help you out is much, much smaller than the ones that are going to do everything in their power to make sure that you suffer for saying something that fucking demonic.
Yeah. It's one of those things, too, where it's like, I feel like the same people who support the billionaires and, like, are like the totally, like, if it wasn't for this one thing, I would also be one of them. I feel like those people are the same ones, like, that are in, like, the silent minority and everything. What they fail to account for is, like, the majority that is just conditioned to be like, yeah, it's fine or whatever. But, like, if you fucking fuck with them, if you put something out there like that like directly attacks like them being able to live like a fucking human being, no, they're gonna speak the fuck up and they're gonna fucking do something about it.
Yep. So like I was saying, please do what you can to help any union, because I know Teamsters, while UPS has come back to the negotiation table for the UPS strike, if that goes south, please support them. Please support your local unions, because like at the end of the day, we should all be a part of something like that where we can collectively bargain for fairer pay, because there is no human being in this country that should and like should be getting paid under $20 an hour. From the fucking McDonald's worker that hands you your McChickens to the Amazon worker that is like handing you your 2-day delivery tchotchkes. Like, every single person in this country deserves to be paid a living wage that allows them to live comfortably, that allows them to maintain their own dignity, and to be able to afford to fucking do something nice for themselves, and even beyond that, to fucking pay for healthcare.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, that could potentially be its own conversation. I wish it was. But as it stands right now in this country, that's just tied to employers and unions and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's absolutely sickening that that there are any dissenters when it comes to the union action. Just remember, this isn't for Matt Damon. This isn't for Margot Robbie. This isn't for like fucking Brad Pitt. It's for all the little guys.
Yeah.
Like,
everyone you saw once on a commercial.
You are closer to them than you will ever be to Matt Damon, Brad Pitt, any of them.
Yeah.
Just remember that. You are so much closer to the little guy that is struggling to get by on his pay to be able to provide for not a family, but just himself.
Right.
Than you ever will be to fucking Bob Iger, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos. You will never reach those heights. I'm sorry to be the guy that lifts the curtain.
If this is how they are as people once they're up there, that should not be allowed. That shouldn't be legal.
There is never going to be a thing. There is never going to be such a thing as a good billionaire, because you do not make $1 billion. You steal $1 billion.
Yep. Absolutely.
I think that wraps up the first of, I'm sure, many more series, or many more episodes in this series of conversations that we're going to have with other individuals. We hope to have some union guests on in the future to talk about their experience and all of that stuff. But yeah, fucking get me out. Also, shout outs to Dove Cameron.